Last but not least, let me introduce you to Miss Editrudith Lukanga. She's a co-president of World Forum of Fish Harvesters and Fish Workers and a member of a civil society mechanism. She's going to give an overview of the use of the CFS policy recommendations on smallholder based on independent report that was actually produced by the civil society mechanism. And the report title is Towards Smallholder-Oriented Public Policies. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, moderator, and good afternoon, everyone. As I've just introduced, Madam Moderator, my intervention is going to focus on this independent report by the civil society and indigenous peoples mechanism monitoring the use and application of the CFS recommendations on smallholders. I'm part of the coordination committee of the civil society mechanism facilitating the fisher folks. Following the human rights-based approach on monitoring and based on consultations with other actors, this report takes reality on the ground as the basis for its analysis. To begin, the CSM acknowledges the special nature and composition of the CFS. It has been possible in this forum to reveal the reality of the role of smallholders in promoting food security and nutrition, as reflected in these 3 sets of recommendations that are under review. The smallholders, the farmers, fisher folks, indigenous peoples, pastoralists, men, women, I name them all, apart from producing most of the food that is consumed in the world, they promote sustainable and nature-based models of production embedded in social structures and territorial food systems. However, this acknowledgement and the normative guidance provided by the CFS contrast with what is existing on the ground today. The dominant paradigm and powerful economic interests promote industrial modes of food production and agribusiness-led value chains, which are detrimental to the smallholders' livelihoods and their rights. However, some progress have been made in the use and application of the CFS policy recommendations, and these recommendations have helped so much in shaping the content of other UN policy initiatives and legal instruments, including, for example, the UN Declaration on Family Farming and the UN Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and other people working in rural areas. Within the CFS itself, these policy recommendations have contributed to a common understanding and language on the importance of respecting, protecting, and fulfilling women's rights in the context of food security and nutrition. We also acknowledge that the civil society groups across the world have used these recommendations in their advocacy work, in their efforts to influence policies that support smallholder production for territorial markets, appropriate food safety standards, and women's rights. So these few examples demonstrate how these recommendations can make difference in improving smallholders' capacity to make fundamental contribution to food security and nutrition, as well as towards realization on the towards the progressive realization on the rights to adequate food. Despite this progress that has been noted, there are problems at different levels, including a continuous lack of recognition of the central and crucial role played by the smallholders in feeding the world. We have been hearing throughout this week that very few governments have adopted the CFS policy recommendations, but also very little about these recommendations is known down at the national level and outside Rome. And even where these policies have been adopted, challenges still remain due to failures in its fully implementation. There are problems of policy incoherence and lack of government's commitment to monitor through a participatory process that include smallholders into the processes. So this is another challenge. And we are seeing smallholders' priorities remaining underfunded, undersupported, and instead funding and support is channeled to large-scale production and global value chains. And as a result of all this, smallholders remain invisible and their rights unrecognized and unrealized. So with this, we want to bring some recommendations and this call for action that to member states and also to Rome-based agencies, but also to CFS itself. But in the interest of time, I'll just focus to the member states because at the country level, that's where real implementation happens. So I would like to encourage the member states to make efforts to apply the CFS policy recommendations to national level policy programs and strategies, as well as national reviews under the Sustainable Development Goals and within the human rights treaty body systems within the countries. We would also like to encourage the member states to apply these recommendations inclusively to develop nationally owned visions for future of the smallholder production in connection to the UN Declaration on Family Farming and other international instruments, such as the UN Declaration on Peasants and other people working in rural areas. We also call for the national governments, the member states, to strengthen policy coherence at the national level by ensuring that the analysis and monitoring of these policies impact the smallholders. And to finish, I would like again on behalf of the civil society to call for the Rome-based agencies to apply the necessary resources and technical expertise to ensure that the CFS policy recommendations and products are translated in their policy guidance and programs of work at regional and global level. Finally, to conclude, the civil society is fully committed to these processes, is fully committed to work together with the member states and the UN agencies to further implement the CFS policy recommendations. This report that we have produced and our participation, not just in this podium, but in all the policy convergence processes, is a symbol of this commitment and our willingness to continue working together with different actors in ensuring that policies that support realization of the right to food are realized, are implemented. Thank you very much.